Alright, so far what we have studied are the individual components of the connective tissue. We studied that the connective tissue is made up of cells, and we studied the 4 different types of cells, and then we said that the cells are surrounded by an extracellular matrix, and this extracellular matrix is made up of protein fibers and ground substance. We studied 3 different types of protein fibers: collagen, elastin, and reticulin, and we studied the components of the ground substance, which were GAGs, proteoglycans, multi-acid proteins, and the interstitial fluid, and we studied how the interstitial fluid comes in. Now, based on the composition of each of these individual things, connective tissue can be divided into different types. So, for example, one type of connective tissue might have more collagen in it, one type of connective tissue might have more interstitial fluid in it, one type of connective tissue might have more cells in it. And so we discuss the features of different connective tissue types. So first up, we have the loose or areolar connective tissue. So number 1, we have the loose areolar connective tissue. This tissue is highly cellular, right? Highly cellular would mean that it has a sparse arrangement of collagen or sparse random arrangement of collagen, which means it has less collagen and more cells. Collagen, as we learned, that it is stained pink, right? And lesser the collagen, lesser the pinkish nature, so it would be more white and it would have more cells. And the major type of cell that is present in the connective tissue would be the fibroblasts that are very densely stained because they have a granulophilic cytoplasm. So as you can see in this photo, we have many different cells that are very densely stained, and then we have this sparse arrangement of collagen in there. All right. So next up, we have the dense connective tissue, and you might have guessed it, it has fewer cells and more collagen. So as we have more collagen, and collagen is stained pink, then it would have a more pinkish appearance as compared to something like the loose connective tissue or the areolar connective tissue, which has less collagen. Now, the dense collagen can be divided into 2 different counterparts that would be regular and irregular. Inside the regular dense connective tissue, you would have a very regular aligned sort of an appearance of collagen in the histology slide, and this would be more stress bearing because it's very regularly and orderly arranged, for example, in tendons and aponeurosis and ligaments. So it can bear more stress. It contains a lot of collagen. Gives it more tensile strength, but also because of the regular arrangement and the alignment, there is more stress bearing quality in this sort of in this type of collagen. And the other type of the dense connective tissue would be the irregular dense connective tissue, in which there is not aligned but interwoven collagen. So this would not be aligned as such in the irregular dense connective tissue, and in irregular it would be interwoven collagen. And you would see this on a histology slide, something looking like this as compared to something like this. Right, and this is usually this is also more stress bearing as compared to something like the loose areolar connective tissue, which has less collagen, and this would be more pinkish than the loose areolar connective tissue. Why? Because it has more collagen, so it is more pink and it has less cells as compared to this one right here. It is of course stress bearing because it has more collagen. It's usually found around dermis of the skin, around organs. And around organs. So around dermis of the skin or around organs, you would see this irregular dense connective tissue. In third place, we have the reticular connective tissue. It is made up of reticulin, type 3 collagen. We have studied this so many times before. We studied that its presence in the basement membranes, and now we also have it in the reticular connective tissue. And what it does is that it forms a very loose framework, and this loose framework means that there's spaces for passageway for larger components in the ECM. So, for example, passageway for cells. For example, in the hematopoietic tissue, hematopoietic would be the leukocyte-producing tissue inside the bone marrow, in which the hematopoiesis is going on. We will study. There's a separate chapter on this, so you will study about the reticular connective tissue presence in this example here, and in the lymphoid organs as well. So we will study these examples later in their own chapters, and why the reticular connective tissue is important for that. But the only thing that you need to know as of right now is that it is made up of reticulin, and it is synthesized reticular cells, and it has a very loose framework. All right, so loose framework allows it to provide a passageway for cells and other stuff. And lastly, we have the mucoid tissue. All right, so mucoid tissue, you might have guessed it, has a very mucus-like, very watery, hydrated, or viscous sort of properties. And the reason for that is because it is rich in hyaluronan, or hyaluronic acid. We studied earlier hyaluronic acid, and the fact that it contains a chain of polypeptides, so it is very saccharide rich. Hyaluronan is saccharide rich, which results in pulling of water through osmosis, because it sets up this osmotic gradient which pulls in the water, pulls in the interstitial fluid towards where it is present, and results in a very hydrated, viscous sort of an extracellular matrix. And it has, of course, scattered fibroblasts. So this tissue would have scattered fibroblasts, but more ECM and more interstitial fluid because it is rich in hyaluronic acid. So all this viscosity, all this hydrated, huge water content would allow this mucoid tissue to support and cushion tissue. So for example, large blood vessels, or it is also present in the vitreous body. It is also present in the nucleus pulposus. You might have studied that in the intervertebral disc. We have the annulus fibrosus and nucleus pulposus. So that is also an example of the mucoid tissue. It is also present in the umbilical cord. So on a histological slide, this would look something like a high ECM, you would say, right, and less cells. So something like this particular slide. So it is less collagen, very high ECM, very wide, and scattered fibroblasts and less fibroblasts. And here's an example of the reticular connective tissue and how it would look like on a microscopic slide. This picture is taken from a thymus, in which the movement or free movement of lymphocytes is very important. Why that is, we will study that later in the chapter in which thymus comes in. But all in all, we can say that the reticular cells that secrete the reticulin provide a loose framework of reticulin that allows the passageway for all these lymphocytes to move about. All right. And that basically concludes this long, very lengthy chapter, and we finally finished it. So let's just go over what we have studied real quick. Alright, so basically we studied that the connective tissue is made up of cells that are surrounded by an extracellular matrix. What cells? We studied 4 major types of cells that are present in the connective tissue, and the ECM that is made up of protein fibers and ground substance. We studied the 3 different kinds of protein fibers and their synthesis, and ground substance. We did the 3 different components, or 4 different components of the ground substance, including the interstitial fluid. All right, and then we concluded with this topic, that is the types of connective tissue, which is basically based on the composition of each of those individual components, how much of each of these individual components are composed in a certain tissue that makes it a separate connective tissue type. So for example, in the loose connective tissue, you would have more less collagen and more cells. In the dense connective tissue, you would have more collagen, less cells. And in the reticular connective tissue and mucoid connective tissue, their own specific characteristics and compositions of the components. All right, and that's pretty much it. See you guys in the next chapter.